Welcome to the Fraud Files. Before we dive into today's episode, make sure to hit that follow button. Don't miss out on unraveling the mysteries with us every week. If you're a CPA like me, you can earn CPE credit for listening to this podcast. All you have to do is answer the course questions at FloQademy.com. That's FLOQADEMY.com. The link is in the show description. Enjoy.
Previously on the Fraud Files.
Wow, I haven't listened to the radio in ages. I didn't realize they had good local programming.
Yep, every Thursday afternoon. Fills me in on current events and politics.
It's genius, Brad. I'll do it once a week on Sundays, and it will broadcast the local zip code.
Who even listens to the radio anymore?
The elderly sitting at home retired with nothing to do, except think about what they're going to do with their money. And who are they going to hear? Me.
Episode 3, The SEC Won't Let Me Be.
Hello, BGFS, Brad speaking.
Hi, is this Bennett Group Financial Services?
Yep, it is.
From Financial Myth-Busting with Dawn Bennett?
It is.
Great! I'm such a big fan of the show. If there's any chance that Dawn's taking on new clients, I would love to take a meeting with her as soon as possible.
I could probably squeeze you in next Thursday at 3.
Always great to see you, Carl. Really excited about our new investment strategy. Give your wife my love.
Will do. See you soon.
See you soon.
Okay, you're all booked. Take care now. 5th new client this week.
Very good job, Brad. You're doing great work.
I have been putting in extra hours. Thanks, Don.
And what did we learn today? We learned we're not going to question me when I have new directives for us. Did you look into those convertible notes for the website like I asked?
Yeah, I did. And I also looked into the FINRA guidelines. And,
That's not a concern. We're two completely separate companies. I'm telling you, Brad, this is going to be phenomenal for us. Stocks and bonds, these folks have heard of all that. But an online startup, well, that's exciting. That's new. That's the future. And with them hearing all the stories coming out of California, they're going to be lining up to move their money over.
Dawn's plan was to go out and excite her investors with the sparkle of her new online startup she just founded.
Your portfolio is extremely balanced in terms of your risk profile. Based on my projections, you'll be making 5% returns. However, there is another really interesting opportunity that's a bit more non-traditional, but the smart clients I have are taking full advantage of it. And based on my projections, it could return you 10% on your initial investment.
I'm listening.
It's a private company. This investment isn't publicly available, and calculated return is 12%.
Wow, 12% is a lot. So it's a luxury sportswear website, huh?
Yep. Catering to the upper class folks who have far too much time on their hands and far too much money. You know, the type that would go spelunking or climb Everest. And listen, this is what the rich don't want you to know. This is how they stay rich. They get access to these opportunities that are never released publicly. Insider information. So the question is, do you want to be rich?
Oh, I do want to be rich. I want to do rich people sports.
Trust me, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to invest in transdermal patches before everyone's got them.
I've never heard of transdermal patches.
Exactly. They're cutting-edge technology. By 2023, they're going to be everywhere.
What are they?
It's not even about what they are. It's about how much money they'll make you. Do you want to make some money, Carl?
So, this is a seed round investment opportunity, and I can transfer my initial investment into equity down the line?
Exactly. This is the exclusive seed round. This isn't being offered publicly. I'm not even offering it to all of my clients, only a select group of elite clients.
I appreciate that, Don.
And here's the best part. Based on my projections, I can promise a 15% ROI.
Come on. How is that possible?
That's the beauty of a privately owned company, Carl.
Sign me up.
I am in.
Who do I write a check to?
Professor Pope, I'm confused. Was it a clothing company or a transdermal patch company?
Well, that's the key here. She hadn't quite figured out the product completely, so her pitch was a little different for each investor. She even called it a few different names. DJBennett.com, DJB Holding, province of the dragon. Essentially, she sold the idea in whatever way she needed to.
So DJBennett.com was a fraud from the beginning.
Well, it's not uncommon for a startup to change their pitch and pivot. Maybe Dawn believed in the vision and thought her business was going to succeed with her at the helm.
It's hard to say what her intentions were from the start. Investing in a startup is much riskier than investing in government-backed bonds, for example. In the VC world, only 1 in every 100 companies will become the investment that makes them all their money back. And well, the other 99, all failures. So what Dawn did is not abnormal in that business. She sold investors on a vision and convinced them that she was the one to execute on it and make them rich. Now, was she intending to defraud them from the start, or did she truly believe in her idea? Who's to say for sure? But to this day, she still maintains that it was a true startup, and she trusted that it would be successful.
I don't know if I buy that. Look at her spending. That's not reflective of someone taking their startup seriously.
Was her spending all for business purposes? As we've previously discussed, that's the questionable part.
You could make the argument that the shoes and designer bags were important for the optics of her business.
Right. I don't know if I'd use a financial advisor who was wearing Costco jeans.
That was likely her thinking. Plus, in her mind, she could probably rationalize that getting a bunch of luxury apparel is part of her R&D for the brand, which isn't a total stretch. But that's just one amongst many other financial benefits of having a startup.
What specific benefits?
Another good question. If we're being honest, many startup founders get away with a lot because the VCs tend to put their faith in the individual rather than the product. Take Theranos, for example. You've heard of it, right?
Oh, yeah. I binged the whole show on Hulu.
Well, by capitalizing on the hype and excitement of the potential health technology breakthroughs, Elizabeth Holmes was able to raise over $700 million to fund the business before they had a working product. Since the business is private and very few investors actually understood the technology, she got away with lying that the product being built was working, when in fact it never did.
But how? None of the investors saw it didn't work?
Well, she used a lot of deceitful tricks, just like Dawn did. And when it comes to startups, VCs and private investors offer a lot of runway, understanding it could be well over a decade before they start to see any profit at all. It's a concept called speculative investing, which is the act of funding high-risk investments with the hope of a big payoff. You could consider many cryptos, such as Dogecoin, a speculative investment, because it could become worthless. But if it takes off, it could be worth millions.
Like with GameStop and AMC. To the moon! Yeah, right.
So she just convinced her financial advising clients to move their money into her startup. But how exactly? It can't be as easy as a bank account transfer, right?
No. If there's one thing we know about Dawn, it's that she knew how to do some financial finessing. Dawn and Brad sat late one night at the office discussing this very issue.
We can't just ask people to write us a check, Dawn. There's regulations around this stuff.
You're always so smart, Brad.
Thanks, Dawn. Really appreciate it.
But no one said anything about writing a check. We already have their money anyway. That's what we're going to use the convertible notes for.
Convertible notes?
Lots of early-stage startups use convertible notes to raise early funding. Basically, the terms are that the investor provides the funds, which are unsecured debt with a stated interest rate and a maturity date.
Okay, so it's just a loan, right?
Technically, yes. But the thing to be aware of here for anyone thinking about investing in a startup via a convertible note is that a convertible note is possibly the highest risk of any investment an investor could make. What a convertible note really is bridge financing. Bridge financing is typically used in real estate when you take a loan to cover buying your next home before you sell your current home.
So it gives you liquidity until you sell the previous asset.
Exactly. That bridge leads somewhere, to a new home. And it's important to look at this with the same principle. A convertible note should be a bridge to somewhere, not a bridge to nowhere. Oftentimes, early-stage companies find their cash well running dry before an equity raise can be completed. And that's when a convertible note becomes relevant. To be clear, a convertible note is not a financing plan. It's a substitute for a financing plan not yet funded. So if a business is issuing convertible notes, it's probably because it's in financial trouble or because its equity financing plan isn't progressing at the pace needed for its working capital demands.
So, Dawn shouldn't have been issuing convertible notes if she didn't have a plan.
Yep. Specifically, an already approved and launched equity financing plan.
I'm guessing she didn't have that.
She didn't. And while Dawn was focusing on her startup, there were several clients from her financial advising business that weren't too happy with her split focus. Around this time, multiple FINRA complaints began to appear against Dawn for matters pertaining to her financial advising business.
Let the record show that this FINRA panel has been assembled to hear complaints against Dawn J. Bennett. And now the panel will interview the claimant.
And you, sir, are the president of a private equity company specializing in building equity programs. Is that correct?
That is correct.
You had brokerage accounts with Ms. Dawn J. Bennett from 2005 to 2012 at 3 different firms. Is that correct?
That is correct.
The claimants have asserted the following causes of action. 1, breach of contract. 2, negligence. 3, failure to supervise. 4, breach of fiduciary duty. 5, churning. 6, unauthorized trading. 7, misrepresentations and omissions. And 8, unsuitability. The causes of action related to, among other things, the purchases of precious metal ETFs and a Swiss franc ETF, plus the short selling of U.S. Treasury strips in claimant's accounts. The claimant is requesting $1,935,230 in damages. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And you are a CPA, a certified public accountant. Why did you wait until now, 2013, to file these claims? Were you not aware of what was happening in regard to your investment accounts?
Despite my substantial financial sophistication and trading experience,
were you not approving each trade before execution?
Well, I was. However, despite this, unauthorized trading took place.
And you were receiving monthly statements and trade confirmations throughout this process, correct? As well as tax returns.
I was, but I wasn't opening them. I was under the impression from Dawn that I was net positive in spite of a high burn rate of withdrawals.
But you never thought to check.
Well,
So you were unaware of your investment trading activity.
That is correct.
Respondents, please make your case.
We would like to note that John D. Crowley's business partner and co-founder, Anthony Francis, is in attendance today and will take the stand. Anthony, you are John Crowley's business partner and co-founder of Lake Hill Partners, correct?
That is correct.
Would you say your relationship is close? Do you speak frankly about everything?
Well, yes. We manage millions of dollars together. There isn't room for secrets.
Did John ever discuss his investments with Dawn Bennett with you?
He did. He said he couldn't believe how well he was doing.
So you would say he was aware of his trading activity at the time?
Yes, I would.
Thank you. You see, Your Honor? It's clear that John was not telling the truth in regard to his knowledge surrounding the investments that Dawn was managing for him.
After considering the pleadings, the testimony and evidence presented at the hearing, the panel has decided in full and final resolution of the issues submitted for determination as follows. 1. Respondents are found jointly and severably liable for failure to supervise and unsuitability, and shall pay to claimants compensatory damages in the amount of $150,000 plus compound interest at the rate of 6% from September 30th, 2011 until the date of payment of the award. 2. Respondents are found jointly and severably liable and shall pay to claimants' attorneys fees pursuant to the Maryland Securities Act in the amount of $50,000. 3. Any and all relief not specifically addressed herein, including claimant's request for punitive damages, is denied.
Ooh, brutal. He only got $200,000.
It was a difficult case for him to fight. I mean, he was a CPA, and he really should have known better. And he did, apparently, as you heard his co-founder testify, that he was aware of his trading activity with Dawn. Now, he may have been misled by Dawn, but unfortunately, thanks to the case facts here, the court didn't rule in his favor.
And this case was a dispute filed with FINRA. So what does FINRA do exactly?
FINRA is the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority. It's a government-authorized, not-for-profit organization that oversees U.S. broker-dealers.
So people can invest safely.
Precisely. They work to ensure anyone who sells a securities product has been tested, qualified, and licensed. They aim to make sure every securities product advertisement used is truthful and not misleading. Any securities product sold to an investor is suitable for that investor's needs, and investors receive complete disclosure about the investment product before purchase.
Dawn was breaching some of those advertisement used as truthful. She definitely had some issues with that one.
She did indeed, but as you saw, she found ways out of the complaints filed against her, at least the early ones. As we'll find further down the line, Dawn used a variety of legal representation, which we know isn't cheap.
David, excellent work. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, Don. He really didn't have a leg to stand on, being a CPA and also having his own co-founder contradict his claims. Open and shut.
That's why you're the most expensive attorney in town.
Well, you know my rate is only that high because of my winning record. Not like you'd have trouble paying it, though.
Never. It's only money, right?
Dawn would soon find that she did in fact have issues keeping up with her growing legal tab, especially as more and more cases were filed against her.
Breach of general duties of reasonable care, honesty, and disclosure.
Recommending unsuitable investments in violation of FLA Stat Section 517301.
Common law fraud.
Breach of fiduciary duty.
Negligent.
And despite having the most expensive lawyers in town, Dawn did not win all of her cases. Between February 27, 2013 and July 14, 2015, Dawn was ordered to pay damages of over $1 million. But the claims against her were multiples of that. Simultaneously, while Dawn was fighting more and more FINRA complaints against her financial advising business, her startup was dealing with issues of its own.
Was it making any money?
Well, in order to answer that question, we must decipher the story that the numbers tell us. You see, Dawn opened a bank account with First Republic Bank called FRB 2861 in January of 2010 in the name of DJB Holding LLC.
Which was one of the names of her website business.
Right. From the time of the account opening, continuing through 2014, the FRB 2861 account appeared to function mostly as an operating account for an internet retail business.
Which lines up with her story.
Correct. However, if Dawn had continued to use the FRB 2816 account solely as a business operating account, then we wouldn't have much of a story now, would we? Now, with the excessive legal bills stacking up, coupled with the decline of both her advising and startup businesses, let's just say Dawn didn't have much in the bank at the time. And making matters worse were the lavish expenses that had been incurred in order to maintain the optics of her success.
We just can't afford it. I don't know what else to tell you, Dawn. It's $500,000 a year, and we don't even have many clients in Dallas.
There's absolutely no way in hell that I'm canceling the lease. I've had it for years, and the terms were a 20-year commitment. Plus, you know our clients. They're red-blooded Americans, and that's why we have to speak their language.
And what language is that?
Fucking football! It's the Dallas Cowboys! It's America's team!
So what? Break the lease. We don't have the money. I mean, look at this bill. We still owe $300K from last season and the full $500K for this season.
Well, that's not current. I wrote them a check for $200K already. We're going to pay it, Brad. Stop fighting me on this. Cutting the lease is not an option.
So what do you suggest we do?
How much do we have in receivables currently?
I mean, the future accountant in me is cringing, but the football fan in me totally gets it. Like, if I was a potential client and she wanted to sell to me, she could invite me to as many Cowboy games as she wanted, and I'd show up and listen to her pitch every time.
So you think it was a valid business expense?
Lavish and excessive, definitely, but I understand the use case for the business.
Professor Pope, why did Dawn ask Brad about the receivables?
Now you're thinking like an accountant. So, according to our research, in 2013, DJBennett.com appeared to enter into agreements with a series of financing companies to sell or factor its receivables.
Could you expand on factoring receivables? I'm not too familiar with that.
It's what businesses do when they're strapped for cash. Accounts receivable factoring is a way of financing your business by selling unpaid invoices for immediate cash. Essentially, a factoring company pays you a large percentage of the outstanding invoice amount, follows up with your customer for payment, and then pays you the remainder of what you're owed minus fees. But this can be expensive. You're not getting all what is owed to you technically, but it can make sense to bridge cash flow gaps. And because receivable factoring isn't technically a small business loan, it can be a good option for business owners with bad credit or short credit histories who may not qualify with a traditional lender. It's a clear indicator that a company is undergoing financial stress, which we know they were.
So the company just accepted her receivable numbers at face value?
I believe so. I mean, they did give her money for them.
But they could have been fake.
Where did you get that from?
Well, we know this woman was falsifying numbers and was promising unrealistic returns on her business. If you were smart, you would double-check her numbers, right?
Great professional skepticism. It was around this time that the complaint from Dawn's former client, Stephen Santagati, became of note for FINRA. With the mounting complaints, they decided to launch a formal investigation against Dawn.
Do you consent to your interview being recorded today?
I do.
Please state your legal name into the microphone and today's date.
My name is Dawn J. Bennett, and today is December 10th, 2014.
And you are also the owner of Bennett Group Financial Services.
That's correct.
What does the company do?
We manage a variety of client portfolios and do our best to advise them to financial wealth.
Uh-huh. And is it true on your radio show, Financial Myth-Busting with Dawn Bennett, you claimed to have nearly $2 billion of assets under management?
Yes, that's correct.
Is that number accurate?
Are you implying that it's not?
I'm the one asking the questions, Ms. Bennett.
Of course it's accurate. We also offer consulting services. We recently gave advice about short-term cash management to 3 corporate clients regarding more than $1.5 billion in corporate assets.
And is Bennett Financial Group Services your only company?
It is not. I am the 100% owner of djbennett.com/DJ Bennett Holding LLC.
And is djbennett.com a business in the financial industry as well?
It is not. It's a cutting-edge retailing marketplace for luxury sportswear.
Noted. So you own and work at both djbennett.com and DJ Bennett Holding LLC?
I own both. However, they are completely separate entities.
Huh. Is it true the physical office spaces of both companies are co-located in one office space in Chevy Chase, Maryland?
Yes, that is accurate.
Wait, sorry. Is it against FINRA regulations to have 2 companies share the same office space?
No, it's not. Though it's also not a best practice. But that's not the true significance of this interview.
It's significant because she finally admitted on record what djbennett.com was, a luxury sportswear website.
It's significant because this marks the first time in our case that Dawn knew she was under some sort of investigation.
Not quite yet.
But, I mean, it's FINRA, right? It's not even a legal organization. What could they even do if they found Dawn guilty?
Well, we already know that FINRA can award restitution for victims, but they can also make referrals to the SEC and other government agencies and share any of the findings from their investigation as they deem appropriate.
Oh, cool. So, like, the feds?
Not quite yet. The next stop in our story is only 7 days after Dawn's FINRA interview on December 10th. On December 17th, 2014, less than a week after Dawn swore under oath that djbennett.com and Bennett Group Financial Services were 2 separate entities, she received an investment in djbennett.com from one of her Bennett Group Financial Services clients.
Dawn, I just saw a big transfer hit the account. Looks like we'll finally have a little breathing room.
Great. How much was it for?
$250,000.
Oh, wow. $250,000. Great job, Brad.
You know this is great news, right?
$250K? That's nothing. This will barely cover our legal bill.
Sounds like she was never satisfied.
Yup. With more outstanding bills, she clearly was in a bind. And sure, she got the money, but not from a new client, but from one of her oldest clients. The transfer that Brad and Dawn were discussing was wired from an individual. Let's call him individual number 2. With the note, loan for a friend.
So essentially, she was just hitting up her friends for loans.
Exactly. And some of those friends were clients from Bennett Group Financial Services.
So the lines were blurry between the businesses.
Which is contrary to what Dawn wanted FINRA to believe. She lied. And starting in December of 2014, over the next 12 months, 28 individuals deposited over $5 million in that FRB 2861 account.
Okay, $5 million a year doesn't seem like much of a bind to be in.
Well, it is, when you need far more than that. Later that same month, Dawn was sitting at home reading the local paper when...
What? The Cowboys had filed a lawsuit seeking $7.3 million in damages from a luxury suite owner who allegedly breached her contract. Dawn J. Bennett, who signed a contract to lease suite number 242 at AT&T Stadium in 2007, breached the suite agreement by not paying the $500,000 annual lease fee, according to the filing. The Cowboys are seeking $7.3 million for the total aggregate unpaid balance of the annual lease fees for the remainder of Dawn's 20-year lease.
Dawn stormed into her office to alert Brad of the lawsuit when...
Brad, did you see this bullshit? This is absolute slander. I'm gonna file a countersuit against them and...
Hi, Dawn.
David, how are you? Good to see you.
I've been better, Dawn.
What's going on? Is everything okay with your health?
You owe me $200,000 in legal fees. And since your office doesn't seem to have working phones, I thought I'd come and collect in person.
David, you didn't have to do that. We've just been a tad busy around here. Your money is on its way to you.
On its way as in you've already wired it, or on its way as in you're going to wire it today?
On its way, as in it'll be in your bank account this week.
That better be the case. I'll tell the collections department.
Great. Please confirm you received the funds with my office by end of week.
Sure.
Such a pleasure, David. Dawn, how the fuck are we going to pay him $200,000 this week? Our bank balance is $88.67.
Wow, you're a really good CFO, Bradley. You know our bank balance to the penny.
Because that's all we have, pennies.
Bradley, like everything else that gets done in this office, I'll handle it. You just keep being CFO of the year, okay?
I'm confused. She just had $250,000. The loan from a friend?
For Dawn, as soon as money came in, it went out the door. Dawn had to find more capital and find it quickly. Now, we're in a fancy steakhouse. You can hear the smooth jazz from the quartet playing in the corner, the clinking of the gold-plated cutlery, the hushed murmurs of a sleazy businessman and his, secretary.
The business is booming. I mean, otherwise we wouldn't be at the top steakhouse in the city drinking Dom now, would we? Cheers.
Cheers. Well, I've looked at the numbers you sent over. They're very impressive. I'm definitely interested.
Sure, but you know, and I mean this with the utmost respect, but I don't really have time to entertain interested. I'm booked up all week with other clients who are begging me to get in. And to be completely candid, this dinner was more of a courtesy since you've been a long-term client of mine.
Well, hold on. How much would you need to know that I'm serious?
The next day, Dawn arrived at the office to yet another transfer.
$230,000. So I guess the $300 dinner bill is justified.
Get it to David right now.
How much?
Well, we owe him $200,000, so send him $200,000. This isn't fucking rocket science, Brad. Come on.
It's getting hard to track who we're paying and who we're waiting to pay.
And that's why I can't do it without you, Brad.
Well, it seems weird to me that Dawn didn't pay off the Cowboys first. That was a public lawsuit. So you'd think that for someone who cared that much about optics, that she would have settled that.
Well, I don't know about you, but if I was being sued for $7.3 million, I would prioritize my legal defense over optics. Plus, we know that part of a lawyer's job is to craft the narrative so their client is not proven guilty. So it can only help my cause. Then I'd worry about a publicist.
It's true that on the outside, a financial advisor not being able to pay her bills was not a good look, and thus Dawn attempted to take matters into her own hands.
To whom it may concern... Wait, no, delete that. To dear Cowboys.
To dear Cowboys?
Scratch that. And keep your opinions to yourself. To the Dallas Cowboys General Counsel. I formally ask that the filing against me be removed/pulled/withdrawn as soon as possible. My job responsibilities require security clearance, as well as working with regulatory groups, all of which, since the story's release in the press/internet, has been in jeopardy. Thus, I have tremendous pressure and great concern for my livelihood that is now at risk. Warm regards, Don J. Bennett.
Warm regards?
For fuck's sake, Brad, just hit send.
Really? She just sent an email and thought that would make them drop the lawsuit.
Well, they did. News broke in September of 2015 that the lawsuit had been resolved and Bennett's suite lease was in good standing. Although I have a feeling it took more than a few nice words from Dawn.
Yeah, an email and a lot of money.
And we'll find that Dawn had no boundaries as for the lengths she would go to secure more funds.
Dawn, I had communicated with you our decision to not make the investment at this time, but thank you for thinking of us. My wife is suffering more than ever, if imaginable, and we simply have to manage matters without further risk these days, not knowing what might be increasing costs for her treatment and/or care. Best always, Andrew.
I am sorry to hear your wife isn't getting any better. She will be in my prayers. Because of your need for safety and guarantee and liquidity, you need to call me. Do you have a moment now to speak?
Dawn, thank you again for your offer. I must reiterate that what you are managing is our sole security blanket. It would be a killer if for any reason an investment in your fine company would lead to any more losses than what our portfolio has experienced in the recent past. Our greatest concern, Don, is for us to have to invest what we have in that one account we spoke of previously and for whatever reason to lose its principal. It would be devastating to us. And at this stage of our lives and personal circumstance, we would have no way or time to rebound.
So she wasn't successful in getting Andrew's money.
Not yet. Now, we remember Individual 2, right? He provided Dawn with her first big investment in her website.
Yeah, he was the $250,000 loan for a friend.
Exactly. He was promised at least a 15% return.
Did he get it?
Well, Dawn actually did him one better. She gave him back his initial investment of $250,000 plus a return of $50,000 within 4 months of his initial investment.
$50,000 is a return of 20% on the initial investment.
That's correct.
Why did she do that if she was running out of money?
Well, my theory is that she was prioritizing the wealthier clients with more funds so they would give more down the line. Of the 28 individuals that deposited or loaned funds to Dawn, only 2 other individuals were repaid in full and none at a 20% rate of return.
So essentially, she was paying people back with other people's investments.
That's correct. So now we're no longer dealing with just misappropriation of investor funds. Now we're looking at a Ponzi scheme. But Dawn was soon to find that even investor money couldn't satisfy her expenses. And on May 19th of 2015, Dawn explored other avenues for funds.
Dawn, we are pleased to provide DJB Holdings LLC a $250,000 line of credit.
I was under the impression that the line of credit was for $750,000.
As discussed, $250,000 is available immediately. The remaining $500,000 is subject to an inventory audit and verification of your statement to Eagle Bank that your Western International brokerage accounts have between $4 million and $5 million in unencumbered liquid assets.
Oh, that's easy. Why don't we just put it down for $750,000 and then add a clause for the audit and verification? I know it's just a formality, and we'll get it sorted by end of day as soon as I get back to the office. Would it be okay to sign for the entire thing now to save my trip back to the branch, post the audit and verification? Especially considering how loyal of a client I've been of yours.
I guess we could do that. Okay, let me adjust the contract.
Amazing. My CFO, Brad Masha, will provide access to my brokerage statements because he handles all of that. However, he's camping through the end of the week with poor cell phone coverage.
Oh, in that case, we'd have to revise the contract.
Well, it's already signed now. I'm sure there won't be any issues with the statements. Why don't we get in touch if you'd have any problems, okay? Thanks so much, Bill. Take care.
It's Danny. Not sure where she got Bill.
So she took out a big line of credit, but even $750K doesn't seem like enough for Dawn.
It wasn't. Do you remember individual number 3?
Well, that was the client who gave her $230,000 to pay off her lawyer.
Individual rule number 3 actually was sort of a get-out-of-jail-free card. Dawn kept him in her back pocket.
Wow, so she just went to him every time she needed money.
Well, on July 9th of 2015, he gave her an additional $150,000. Any guesses of what Dawn's bank balance was at the time?
Was she in overdraft?
She may as well have been. She had $152.42 in there.
Where'd the $150,000 go that he gave her?
Brad, send the full $150,000 to the Cowboys account.
But then we're back down to less than $200.
Nothing slips past you, Brad.
On September 9th of 2015, another FINRA complaint is filed against Dawn. She already had over 5 complaints from former clients against her that had been settled. But this one was different because it didn't come from a client at all. In fact, it came from the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission.
In today's news, the SEC has issued a press release about Dawn Bennett Financial Services, in which they announced charges against Bennett for allegedly inflating both the amount of assets under management by her firm, Bennett Group Financial Services, and the investment returns obtained by BGFS. The SEC alleged that this took place on Bennett's paid weekly radio program titled Financial Myth-Busting with Dawn Bennett, which began airing on AM radio in Maryland and Washington, D.C. in 2010.
Oh, so she's done for. That's it.
This is just the tip of the iceberg. On the heels of the SEC complaint, Dawn was barred from practice as per FINRA in September of 2015.
As in barred from practice as an investment advisor?
This court deems it appropriate and in the public interest that public administrative and cease and desist proceedings be, and hereby are, instituted pursuant to Section 8A of the Securities Act of 1933, Sections 15B and 21C of the Securities Exchange Act of 1934, Sections 203E, 203F, and 203K of the Investment Advisors Act of 1940, and Section 9B of the Investment Company Act of 1940 against Dawn J. Bennett. From at least 2009 through February 2011, a firm and its founder, majority owner, and CEO Bennett made material misstatements and omissions regarding assets that were purportedly managed for investors and regarding investment returns for the purpose of retaining existing customers and attracting new customers. Then, during the investigation of this matter, Bennett and the firm made additional misstatements in an effort to obstruct the investigation and to cover up their prior fraud. In short, Bennett and the firm grossly overstated the amount of assets they managed by at least $15 billion in a calculated effort to inflate their profile and prestige. As a result of this conduct, FINRA has barred this individual from acting as a broker or as an investment advisor or otherwise associating with a broker-dealer firm or with firms that sell securities or provide investment advice to the public.
So, just to recap. Now Dawn has FINRA and the SEC on her tail, right?
Right.
So what now? More lawyers?
You think that, but no.
Namaste. Ben speaking.
Is this Ben Collins at Puja.net?
Yes, it is. Nice to hear from you, Dawn. I've noticed you've been spending a lot of money on our site on a variety of rituals. While we appreciate your business,
Ben, listen to me. I'm being harassed by the SEC. My enemies are after me. I need your help.
Next time on the Fraud Files.
Agent Custer speaking.
Hi, Agent Custer. We have some information on an individual that may be of interest.
Name?
Dawn J. Bennett.
Are you aware of any additional victims who were financially affected?
Well, we were hoping you could help with that.
Ben, I told you, I'm in a very tough fight against my enemies. I need all the help I can get.
Mr. Collins, this is FBI Special Agent Custer. We need to speak to you about one of your more, active clients. And no, this is not a joke.
Love today's episode or have suggestions? Rate us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us improve and makes our community stronger.